I'm Shruti Bharat. In 2021, I had my beautiful son, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. But I also realized that it was an emotional roller coaster. I wasn't ready for all the changes that happened within me and all of my relationships. But I also realized I am not alone. I accessed a lot of great content during this time, but realized that there just wasn't enough from an Indian context. And I want to do something to change that. Last year, I set up Beyond the Bump, which is a fully volunteer run platform. And as part of the content offerings of this platform, I'm starting a new podcast called Bump In. It's an opportunity to meet a lot of everyday parents who share their stories of how they're not only surviving, but thriving inside and after the 0 to 24 month phase. So join me as we talk about the highs, lows, the madness, and the inevitable challenges with some laughter sprinkled in between. Be sure to listen all the way till the end for some important takeaways and some resources that might help support your journey. See you soon. Hi, Arpita. Welcome to Bump In, a podcast that I've started to develop as part of the content offerings from Beyond the Bump that you're aware of. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. I know it cannot be easy, particularly juggling work and a 10-month-old, but really, really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Shruti. It's going to be really exciting and fun for me to speak about one of the most important threads in my life currently, which is my motherhood. Um, it's a privilege to have a platform to speak about it. So thank you once again.
That's fantastic. So, Arpita, I want to start us off with sharing a little bit about you, right? Tell us about you, your background, where are you from, and we'll go from there.
As you already know, I'm a management consulting. I'm currently working at a firm called IntelliCap, where I am a principal in their climate and energy practice. So we mostly advise entrepreneurs on commercializing their ideas and ensuring that there is some clean tech that's going at scale for the benefit of people and the planet. That's what is currently keeping me busy. Just around when I became pregnant and went through childbirth, I was dabbling with one of the entrepreneurial ventures where we were trying to build a tech solution for taking meditation to people. Although it could not be a sustainable work for me due to multiple reasons, I shifted gears, but that was a big part while I was going through pregnancy and childbirth.
It's like two babies in
Yes,
one time period in some sense, right? That's
indeed. Yeah.
fantastic. So, how long ago did you have your baby? And I can hear him in the background a little bit. But
Yes.
how long ago did you have your baby? And tell us a little bit about that experience. I mean, at
So,
least a little bit in the beginning.
yeah. So, my baby is just 10 months old, quite in the first year of infancy. And the whole of 2023 is a blur in that sense. First 2 months of being pregnant and really hoping that the delivery could happen soon. Somehow I was ready to pop out the baby from 35th week of my pregnancy. Don't ask me why, but Jan end of 2023 I was ready to pop out the baby, but it only happened in March. And the last 10 months have been the most eventful, the most mindful moments of my life till now.
Yeah, I can completely understand and imagine, and I also relate to the blur part quite
Yeah.
strongly. So, Arpita, since the birthing experience is fairly recent for you, 10 months feels like a long journey, but it's reasonably short in the in what is a beautiful sort of lifetime that you'll have with your son. Tell us about your experience planning for that and getting into that space, and what were some of your considerations when you were thinking about, okay, giving birth, and how did you utilize that information to make the right choices for you?
Yeah, it's a very important question to ask for a mother, Shruti. Uh, Even before I became pregnant, I knew that I wanted to trust my body, trust in a very healthy lifestyle to sustain my pregnancy and childbirth. But enter pregnancy and all these doctor visits, scanning, etc., I felt like I was losing control of this whole process. And not to say that the doctor I was consulting during my pregnancy wasn't good, or I had very jarring experiences, but it was not the best. My experience of doctor consultation for the initial 7 months of my pregnancy was where the medical system had a lot of power over my experience as a pregnant woman than I had over my body, over the choices of medical treatments that I had to go through. I did not have a constant nurse or a midwife or a doctor who I could reach out to at any point of perceived emergency in my mind to get a word of wisdom. There were
Correct.
long queues, and it was all very detached, very impersonal, the treatment that I was getting. Although scientifically you could argue that they were the best, uh, the procedural duties were all in place. I felt like there was a lack of agency for me. And 6 months into my pregnancy, our search started for a place where we could birth the baby with the least medical interventions possible, where I could have a voice as a mother to say what kind of birthing experience I wanted. Um, as a family could choose what are the treatments during delivery or post delivery that we wanted to avail. And very coincidentally, we happened to come across suggestions for such facilities in Bangalore, and we ended up selecting Astrika Midwifery Center, which
Yeah.
is a strong practitioner of evidence-based birthing. And I think that was the point from which we really started to believe in ourselves and our decisions, and also trust our medical providers to guide us through the process. um, Once we selected into Astrika, we were given a lot of hand-holding support to understand what are some of the questions we need to ask about the mother's body, about any emergencies during childbirth, whether we want to take any pain management options, if the baby has any complications during birth, after birth, what are the care options available for us. These were all um, pre-discussed, and
Yeah.
we co-created a birth plan with the hospital unit. And although my birthing experience was very very different to what we had planned, at least we went into the experience knowing well that we had some voice, we had some agency to plan our births.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so many questions coming out of this, but I think I also wanted to take a moment to share something very similar in terms of my journey. I think my observation of the your classic medical practice was it is truly quite clinical. I think there's it's a very sort of standard package. There's a checklist, you follow that, and that's kind of the treatment that you get as part of the pregnancy. I found that the pathologizing of certain things was very problematic, and maybe I come from a space like you who's empowered to think about it at that level. I have a metacognition of the situation rather than just, going with the flow. And I would often have these really frustrating questions, after these appointments saying, why are we just focusing on this thing and why not, it in a more holistic way. Having said that, I was still lucky enough to have a very healthy pregnancy, and I mean, everything, kind of went off as well as it could, given I had my child in the pandemic. But I remember my husband and I signed up for Lamaze, and we met a doula through the process who um, put us on to midwifery. And, we started to, in fact, even look up Astrika, who they were basically just setting up at the time that my son was due, and we couldn't really pursue that because they didn't have the facilities to take us on as a patient at that point. But when I look back, I also felt that there was possibly some part of wanting to be in control of such a uncontrollable situation was part of the entire experience, right? The planning and the talking. I remember going to my OB/GYN and telling her that, can I bring my doula to the, to the, and she didn't even know what I was talking about. She's like, what is a doula?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, God bless her. Obviously, she knows her job and she brought my son into this world safely. But it's like two different universe. They're just not even, there's no intersection, or there rarely is. And I think what you've touched upon is essentially just how much do you know about what's about to happen to you, not just the pregnancy, but the act of giving birth,
yeah,
and how empowered are you in that process is such an important piece of the puzzle. And those of us who are privileged enough to ask those questions and have answers for it, we really
yeah,
need to lean into that, as much as possible.
yeah.
um, so I think what the piece I wanted to move into is, once things went per plan, not as per plan, both. What was your recovery from childbirth like? Do you remember how you felt physically, emotionally? What was that? Can you touch upon some of that experience for us?
Yeah, I want to pick a thread that you touched upon, right? Asking questions.
Yeah.
My birthing experience was truly traumatic, Shruti, for multiple reasons because
Oh, wow.
I was 40 weeks into my pregnancy with a case of diabetes from 35th week. So we had to
Oh,
chemically
wow. Okay.
induce my pain. I was hoping for this very yogic, serene uh, labor process, but it was 20 hours long with
Yeah.
I had to be chemically induced with the pain and things didn't go as per the plan. I didn't have any pain management, so I had to bear all the pain. My partner was with me, and when our child was born, he had complications. He was born a blue baby, so
Wow.
um, just around the birth, we still remember those very very stressful initial 5 minutes.
I
And
totally understand. Yeah, it's just
yeah,
giving me chills as you're describing it. Yeah.
exactly. And there's my partner, there's me in the labor room. The baby's health was not so great. He spent 1 week in ICU and he had 3 weeks of antibiotics. The whole experience was so
Wow.
traumatic, and our system and our society, they are not ready to hold space for a new family going through so much.
Hmm.
One,
Yeah.
there is such taboo about talking about your young child's health. This whole aspect of nazar lag jayegi, evil eye, nobody speaks about their young baby, what is happening, whether the babies are feeding well, are they going through treatments. There's a lot of hush hush, don't discuss.
Yes.
Not everyone has the same intent, so ward of evil eye. We are like, if we can't rely on our family members, relatives, friends to share, then what are we doing? So there's
Yeah.
this isolation that comes through societal evil, I think. Anyone with a pregnant woman in their family or a little baby understand the extent of this
Absolutely.
evil eye concept. It's pervasive in our Indian family setups.
Yeah.
Second is, because our birthing experience and immediate post birthing 1 month was so traumatic for me, my partner, and my caregivers. The psychological impact of it, the blues that we were all going through, and the
Yeah.
rage, the postpartum rage, which is so real. Again,
Yes.
you would know it only when you experience it. It is one of those things in life that you can't really grow to appreciate until you experience it yourself. It's very real. The
Yes.
postpartum blues, the postpartum rage, they are very real, and you are ill equipped to handle it.
Yes.
And it's also very difficult to navigate that maze of finding a therapist who could handhold you through that, because there's so much to do.
There's
The
not enough time to really think about what kind of help you need, because you're really looking after a very vulnerable little infant, rightfully so, paying
Yeah,
attention to someone who really needs you.
Yeah, yeah.
Arpita, such a vulnerable thing that you've shared, and I absolutely relate. I think a large part of the secrecy around some of these experiences is, I think both. It's the superstition, the mythology around, inviting that negative energy, nazar, as you say, from people. And it's also, I think, perception management. A lot of people don't want to be seen as having a
Yeah.
tough time, or don't want their family to be projected in society as having a difficult period, when in fact it is possibly the most human and most obvious part of human existence is to
Yeah.
to struggle and rise up and struggle again and sort of go up and down. Sounds like you had a truly tough experience, and I'm happy that you've been able to sort of ride that and come through that, and be better for it. What did you do to cope, and what did you finally sort of do to get through some of that processing the trauma of what had happened, things hadn't gone per your plan, and also being there for yourself, your partner, and your new baby?
Yeah. I think one biggest realization I had was that postpartum body that I had was the most physically vulnerable I had ever been in life.
Yeah.
I was not counting on being so dependable on others in the initial 2 3 weeks, just to even go to the loo, change your dress, to feed the baby. I wasn't able to do anything independently.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The first thing that I tried to do was accepting this vulnerability, right? Growing into a person that can accept vulnerability and ask for help. It was a big thing.
Big shift.
Yeah, asking for help, it could be your partner, it could be your parents, it could be your extended family, friends. It's not easy.
No, not at all.
So, learning to ask for help was the first thing I struggled with and I learned to do. Second is trying to, this is where I faltered also, trying to gain my physical strength sooner than later. And like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks happened, my doctor cleared, gave me an all go for returning to my exercise regime. I did some yoga with over enthusiasm, hurt my knee in the process, right? Try to do core strengthening exercise. You could, anyone who saw me that time could see that, okay, this one is hastily trying to gain back her core strength, which,
Yeah.
as a mother yourself, you know that it is a long journey, it is a slow journey, right? But that is something that I tried to do for my own mental peace, rather than, I didn't gain much physical strength because of this haste, but that was something that I wanted to do. And third was, I was part of this support group that Astrika itself had facilitated, a bunch of 8 to 10 new mothers in our cohort. I relied on them heavily. Right, we were all 4 a.m. friends who were breastfeeding together and exchanging notes about babies' feeding patterns, babies' poop patterns, and anything and everything under the sun about motherhood. That was a
Yeah.
very judgment free space that was there. And fourth is, I'm a reader, so I, even in that period, I knew that I was eager to read. I read up articles, I read up books, I read up anything that I could lay my hands on, to understand this whole process of matrescence, right? Shift from being
The
uh,
birth of a mom.
the birth of a mom. Yes, the birth of a mom.
Yeah.
There were such complex emotions involved, and this framework of matrescence helped me navigate that psychological journey.
Yeah. No, you shared some really beautiful things, and I wanted to comment on one or two aspects. I think an observation that I've had in hindsight, obviously, this is after the sleep deprivation has been solved, and a lot of that initial, there's such an elevation of certain hormones that you're just not able to think as clearly as you usually were. I think one aspect that I've come to terms with in terms of that period and my emotional bandwidth at that time was the my personality had evolved so much as having a child in my 30s. I was in control, like the kind of work that we do, right? You're leading, you're managing, you are calling shots, you are largely in control of what's happening in life. And I think when you put us, broadly, I'm saying us, but obviously it's a very heterogeneous group. You put us in a situation where you have absolutely no control,
No
right? You
control,
have
yeah.
no control. I think the shift and the adjustment is very jarring to give in, and particularly touching on the point you talked about asking for help. I think there's so many layers to that, right? Being vulnerable enough to ask for help is letting go of being a leader, being able to follow, being able to take direction, being able to take help in the way you get it. These are things that hurt initially. I mean, for whatever reason, it's a weird type of pain, right? To be in that space. And I'm wondering if that's, are you able to, is this a similar experience for you? Do you now think this is kind of where some of that was coming from in terms of just not being able to be that vulnerable and finding pain in being in that space? Is that something you relate to?
Definitely, Shruti. Along with, changing identity from being very independent, being in leadership positions to being the most vulnerable, the other aspect was also for me seeing a true shift in my priorities. As
Hmm.
soon as you become a mother, you have another being's well-being attached to you at all times. This,
Yes,
if you imagine your brain as a box, more than half of the space is occupied by someone outside your body,
correct.
and hence your priorities about your daily routine, your relationships, your immediate career aspirations, your finance, your spirituality, everything has shifted.
Yeah,
And you need to adjust to each shifting priority in the shortest time possible. Sometimes few minutes, few hours.
hmm,
And you have no choice.
yeah,
I think for me that played out in a very big way than just losing the identity of being a leader.
absolutely. I can relate to everything you've shared. I think the shifts that you talk about has taken me a good part of last year to actually reconcile a lot of that. It's the time that my son went from being 1 to 2, and that actually has been the major propelling factor to think about doing a support space like this, right? To be able to open up avenues to talk about challenges, because like we were saying earlier, challenges don't get discussed because there's a
Yeah.
very romantic view of motherhood that you will meet your baby in the most sort of non-messy way, and everything will be just love at first sight, which really isn't the case. You do have a deep attachment which is almost physical to this being, but none of those pictures play out in reality, as far as I know. I don't think anyone has ever said that to me up till now. Um, so what we'll do now, Arpita, is we'll shift the conversation in a slightly different trajectory, sort of where you were talking
Shruti, if I
about.
may interject there,
Please, please.
so on this aspect of love at first sight, right, I consider myself to be one of those insane mothers who fell in love with their babies even before the baby was born. And because our baby had some health complications in the initial few weeks, right, like I just couldn't bring myself to think about anything beyond my baby for the initial 5 6 weeks. Maybe the circumstances played out so, but
Yeah,
and I did it at a cost of my own health, and there are other complications of that.
of course, of course.
But I can recognize those statements when people say, "Oh, love at first sight, you can't think beyond anything beyond the
Yeah.
baby," and it scared me. It scared me that I had become that person. I wasn't anticipating to become that person.
No, I get that. And actually, if I'm being perfectly honest, I had that too. But I think the kind of love that I felt at first has evolved. I felt like it was an overprotective mama bear type of, a fear-driven love. It was
Yeah.
not an emotional love, an evolved love, which where you know the person or you feel connected to the human being. I think that has happened over time, and I've seen
Yeah.
my little bub grow up a bit and kind of, get attached in a slightly different way. I think also what I was trying to say is that there's this notion of bliss, that you're so blissed out all the time, which I'm yet to encounter someone who will
Yeah.
tell me that they have continuous unadulterated bliss. You have moments. There are good moments, when you're in the sun and taking a walk and your baby's just woken up, and there's a lot of that, there are beautiful moments, but it's not a continuous state of bliss. I don't know how that would be even possible given
Yeah.
just the amount of sleep deprivation, which is just part of the job, right? There's no getting away from it, right?
And it still
Breastfeeding every
continues.
2 hours. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. It's just it's there are studies that talk about sleep. I mean, we know that sleep deprivation is a torture technique. We know this as part of our current reality in the world that we live in. But it is also, I remember reading a study that talked about how chronic sleep deprivation actually, in many cases, people start exhibiting symptoms of schizophrenia. It is
Hmm.
that acute,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're talking about genuine psychosis. It is not, it's any wonder that we have, manifestations of blues, anxiety, rage, what have you, right? Completely understand. And I've had my share of experiences with anxiety during that period, so I totally relate. So what we'll do now, Arpita, is I want to talk a little bit about, you attempted to start up. I think you had a great experience there, and now you've moved back into, your classic workforce kind of model. How's the shift been for you? How's it treating you so far? I know it's early days, but anything that pops out in terms of how this experience has been for you so far?
Yeah, it's a very great transition, Shruti. I am 3.5 months back into workforce, and luckily for me, the organization has been extremely supportive. With few of the perks like work from home, very understanding co-workers who react well to any emergencies that I might have with the kid, which makes me also realize that not everyone comes with this privilege,
No, not at
right?
all.
Not at all. I've seen other women who are my friends who are going through similar experiences. They have to travel 1 hour each way to work. They have to be separated from the baby for 10 hours. So if they are breastfeeding, they need to think about weaning off the baby or pumping milk, which comes with its own logistical and health complications. For me, touchwood, luckily it has all been smooth.
Yeah.
And I am also seeing that um, the way I treat my own ambitions has altered.
Excuse me.
I am being kind to myself, where it's the truth, but I can't be as aggressive as I was before childbirth, where I was okay working for say 14 hours a day for weeks together.
Yeah,
I can't do that now, and I don't even want to do that now because I know it has health implications. Even today,
absolutely.
my baby breastfeeds throughout the night, so my sleep is still compromised. And what I am seeing myself develop is a lot of grace, forgiveness for myself about not being the kind of person that I was before childbirth. And there's also
Yeah,
a bit of grief for my older self that I have to constantly deal with.
yeah,
I think, and I often keep telling my close ones that motherhood is a journey of humility. Everything
absolutely.
that you had taken for granted and you felt entitled to are not the case. You have to constantly learn the game of letting go and being grateful for whatever you have. I think that's the
A
game for
hundred
me
percent.
right now.
It's so incredible to hear that you're already so kind to yourself, right? In terms of the standards you hold yourself to now versus what you were before, but also keeping space to acknowledge who Arpita was before baby came along, right?
Yeah.
Because I too had the same. I think we're similar in that we were ambitious and kind of went after what we wanted, and you don't have that type of bandwidth anymore. And I think it's been a very humbling journey to realize that you can have everything. It's how much of everything at what point in time, in what sequence is what really matters. And
Yeah.
this debate has been had left and right. I think we've heard enough about, women can't have it all, women can have it all. And I think there are different brands of feminism that will, in some sense, push a certain point across more strongly than others. But what's coming out from me from what you're sharing is you've got to be sensitive to who you are and what your context is, right? And
Yeah.
what you can pull off at this time. And aspiring for anything outside of that is probably going to be a little bit of a heartache,
Yeah.
for everyone involved, in some sense. So, Arpita, maybe just a few more things I wanted to talk to you about, and I'll let you go back to work and the baby. You touched upon this earlier in terms of equipping yourself with information about birthing and pregnancy. Um, what resources have you accessed for early parenting in terms of I know you talked about even matrescence, like going deep into that. What are maybe one or two things that you would suggest to new moms or new moms and dads, looking to learn a little bit more about the biggest job of your life?
Yeah. Ah, one can never prepare for this job, can they,
True,
Shruti?
true.
But still, if you are attempting to prepare for this job, then I would say for new mothers very early on in the 0 to 24 month of motherhood, I would say learn about matrescence, learn about the challenges your body and mind go through to adjust to this phase of motherhood through podcasts. I mostly relied on podcasts because there isn't much written literature covered about this process of a woman becoming a mother. Second is a book recommendation that I have. It's called Hunt, Gather, Parent.
Okay.
This book covers parenting styles across a lot of nomadic ancient cultures in the world. What do those cultures still do? What have they retained from the learned wisdom of multiple generations? And it's very good to know some of the ways of handling babies, toddlers in the early 0 to 5 years of their age in a technology free world, right?
Yeah.
So I think that gave me a lot of perspective to think about how did humanity survive with babies before there was Cocomelon and Baby Shark to distract our babies. How did families really survive that? And thirdly, Shruti, I am a spiritual person. I have few practices that I fall back on. Um, I would call upon mothers to figure out what works for them, right? It could be meditation, it could be a support group, it could be a lot of reading, reflection, gratitude practice, journal. I don't know what moves your light.
Yeah.
Just find it and do it every day. It's not about uh, postponing it to a weekend, postponing for when you start sleeping. No. Figure out something that lifts your spirit every day and just stick to it. It has a lot of good to do.
100% agree. I think very, very good recommendations. For me, the third point specifically, moving, walking, really, really, really changed my life. I mean, I was anyway already very active, and I think continuing that practice has been so, so, so important to my recovery in this time period. So, thank you for sharing that. Arpita, if there was a myth or a sort of something that you was a pet peeve that you wanted to eradicate from this space, given your experience of pregnancy and 10 months as a mother, what would that be?
A controversial thing, right? I want to stir a controversy. To say that a dad or anyone else in the family can replace a mother's position if they are willing, right? This is a strong feminist argument can that dads can take equal
Yeah.
child rearing responsibilities. From my experience of 0 to 12 months, that does not happen, especially if the mother is feeding. Forget about equal responsibilities. A mother always has a lion's share of work to do. If
Yeah.
you are a woman, if you are a family thinking that you will divide all the child rearing responsibility 50-50% with your partner or anybody else, that's a myth.
Absolutely. I have lived this and I understand it. And I think the workaround, if any, is to say what are things outside of baby, the infant care, that can be distributed and owned from a mental load or a household perspective that can be shared by the partner. Because I know that in the time that I was doing my 0 to 12 months with my son, I also moved to another country and ended up
Yeah,
doing one too many things because you're living in a DIY world. And I remember listening to stories of our mothers who said, we did it all, we did it with two kids, no big deal. And I started to feel quite inadequate. But I also realized that times have changed. We're also juggling a third element,
yeah,
which is paid
work.
work, with an entity which perhaps our mothers didn't struggle with as much. And we're also dealing with the load of expectations, right? Because they grew up in more simpler times when there was a
And
certain
nuclear
set of
family is a
expectations.
new, yeah.
Exactly, having a joint family system, you can rely on other people. Whereas here you're living with three people, two people, not too many hands to support. But this has been fantastic, Arpita. Thank you. I think there's a lot to learn from your experience, and I hope that moms who are planning their birth or who have just come out of it will relate to your experience and take away something from this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Arpita. I wanted to share some very important takeaways with you from the discussion. It will take time to feel like yourself. Remember, recovering from birth takes time, especially if it was complicated or traumatic in any way. The 6-week checkup is super important, but make sure to make as many appointments as you need to get checked by the doctor. You are not competing with yourself or anyone else to recover the fastest. Seek support from medical professionals, other experienced mothers, and do follow your own intuition here. Remember, identity shifts are to be expected. You are already many things to many people, including yourself. This new role will consume more of you. Remember, every phase is temporary and you will learn to accommodate changes with time and grace. Finding a practice that helps you gain presence and mindfulness is super important. Low-touch hobbies, meditation, and even sleep can be a great way to feel a little bit more like yourself. Remember, having a baby really does change us, so we do have to show up for ourselves and our little ones with grace and compassion. Think of many of the following suggestions, including using your friends and family for support. Remember, you are not alone. Taking time for yourself, even if it's 15 minutes every day to do something that reminds you of your old self, is so important. Don't be in a rush to bounce back, and remember, you can also seek support through counseling and therapy. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Bumpin'.